Hey, it's Brian and Nick from London Real. This week we've got Jonny Miller, a DJ, electronic music producer, and
obsessive flyer collector.
Yeah, he talks about playing when he was 15 years old to 1,000 people, raves in Manchester, and
also strangely zen for someone in the music industry.
Yeah, and he talks about making money in digital music. So check it out now. Hello and welcome to London Real. My name is Brian Rose. With me is the masterful co-host, Mr. Nick Gabriel. And joining us today is Mr. Jonny Miller, as I said on our Facebook, the legendary DJ, electronic music artist, and digital label manager, and also music production tutor. Welcome.
Thanks, man. I'm not quite old enough to be legendary yet.
How old are you?
I'm 37.
Really? You look good for 37.
Thanks, man. I'll work out.
You've got a young looking face.
Thanks, man.
I don't even know where to go from that. You know, before I get into your the things you do and all of your talents and how I met you, etc., I just wanted to ask you like a current question that I was thinking about, that I read about recently, and it was the Deadmau5 and Madonna spat that came out recently, and I was wondering if you could tell everyone what happened if they don't know about it, and then tell us what you think about it.
Okay, well, there's this in America at the moment. Well, for the past few years, this dance music has just exploded into the mainstream. They call it EDM, electronic dance music.
Right, that's the term.
I think so. I think it's electronic dance.
What was it used? What term was used before that?
I don't know. Okay. Dance music, I guess, or rave.
Yeah, but I guess in the States, dance music is like barn dancing or something like that.
Yeah, that's probably it.
That is
probably
dancing?
It.
Barn dancing, like
like country dancing.
What are you saying?
Say again?
I have hillbilly friends.
Yeah, well, I mean,
country line dancing. So they don't call it house there, right?
They do, but as a broader term.
Okay.
Like EDM, it's kind of been picked up on, and it's become quite commercial in the last few years. And there's this, obviously the Miami conference is like the big dance music festival.
I've always wanted to go to that. Have you been to that before?
I haven't. No, I haven't. I mean, it used to be a business conference, where everyone would meet around the pool of the Radisson Hotel, and I think it's the Radisson, and just do business. But now it's this huge festival, and I think it's called Ultrafest. It's this big like rave that happens in Miami.
Have you been to that?
No, actually never heard of it until so Madonna made that comment at Ultrafest.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it's always this time of year, April or whatever.
Yeah, she's definitely kind of jumped onto the success of dance music as she does. She always reinvents herself, and that's I think pretty cool about what she does. And she's really kind of embraced this EDM thing.
In her last couple albums, right?
In the new stuff, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, she got on stage. She was introducing a DJ, and she asked if anybody had seen Molly, which is a street reference to MDMA.
Right.
And I mean, personally, I don't know. I don't think it's a great thing to do for to make references like that to drugs so openly. But she said she was talking about one of her songs, and Deadmau5, came on and started going on Twitter about how it was a bad idea. And then
he hates the association of ecstasy, MDMA with dance music.
I don't know.
Even though it's hard not to see that association, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's been part and parcel of it for years. But I think Madonna's thing was just a bit too obvious.
Okay.
And yeah, it's never going to look good, really. But they both know very much what they're doing. I mean, they both know how to use their name to create a bit of controversy, which, for Madonna's case, is probably going to sell albums. And
she's masterful promoter,
yeah,
right? Mm-hmm. It's like her 8th album at #1. Yeah. Her last album, Hard Candy, which I thought was rubbish, was #1 as well.
It's getting a bit tired though, right? Madonna's getting tired, man.
She's getting old.
Do you know what I mean? Like, but even the reinventing herself, like, I mean, look.
The whole roller skates thing she did 2 albums ago, that was good, but she was covering those ABBA songs. No, what was it? Was that
I can't even remember that.
Yeah, that's the last thing I
Time
heard.
goes on, time moves slowly, so slowly. That was good, right?
I didn't listen to it, to be honest. But we'll take your word for it.
All right, but you think she's
heard it.
You think she's played? She is a bandwagon jumper. I mean, she used to be pop rock, right?
But she's always been into dance music. I mean, I think her first gig in England was at the Hacienda, which is a famous club in Manchester. So
okay.
I mean, she's always embraced electronic music. So that's no surprise. But
She actually, I mean, Johnny and I were in the elevator on the way up today, and I was just telling them that I'm going to this big dance music party tomorrow night with my favorite DJs at Above and Beyond. Okay. And the funny thing about Above and Beyond, I found out last night, I was at dinner at someone's house, and one of them had actually worked with Above and Beyond, and Above and Beyond got their big break because one of the DJs did a remix of one of Madonna's tracks, and he was unheard of until then, and Madonna liked it so much, and she put it out, and that gave him his big break, which I thought that's kind of cool of her. I mean, you know, even though she's a bit played out, that's still pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely.
She does know how to sell herself, right?
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So you're cool that she's with EDM now, and
I'll be honest, I don't really know too much about what she's doing. I haven't heard any of her new music. I mean, I think it's natural that she's gonna move on to whatever's cool and whatever sells. And at the moment,
what about Deadmau5? I mean, because you've been working with EDM, quote unquote, for a long time, right?
Yeah, but I've never called it EDM, to be honest. Yeah, I've been working with electronic music for over 20 years now.
Okay.
So, but yeah, Deadmau5, again, I don't know all that much about him, to be honest.
You've heard some of his tracks.
Yeah, I mean...
And he's got to be one of the most mainstream guys now, especially in the States.
Yeah, he's smashing it, and good, you know, fair play to him, good luck to him.
Do you think he was just the right place, right time, and he made it enough mainstream where a lot of people kind of caught on to it?
I think sometimes with artists, there's a little bit of magic, you know, where whatever they're doing just strikes a chord with people, you know, with like the Chemical Brothers and the Prodigy, and more recently guys like obviously Deadmau5 and you know, they strike a chord. They just doing what they do, and it just goes, you know, and there's that little bit of magic there that helps it along.
Is it hard seeing, you must see guys that have as much talent as Chemical Brothers or the Prodigy or Deadmau5, you know, in your business, and they don't get the breaks, and you must be like, God, it's just such a not a cruel business.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I think that's what we're really talking about here is mainstream success. And, you know, for every one Deadmau5, there's 100 other producers that pretty much do the same thing, where, you know, they might get known a little bit and have a bit of success independently, but they just never hit those heights.
Do you think do you think it's because A, they don't work hard enough, or B, they just weren't in the right place at the right time, or a combination of?
No, I think, you know, some producers work amazingly hard. I mean, the guys that I've met over the years who I've spent time with and who have influenced me have all worked amazingly hard, you know. Mm-hmm. And there's the sort of thing where I think I've always said to my students as well, there comes to a point where you make a choice between really getting serious with your music or just doing it, you know, an hour here, an hour there, and going to the pub with your mates. And you'd have to have sacrifices. Something I've always said to all my students over the years as a tutor is that you, to a degree, to make it, you've got to sacrifice certain things. It might be going out. It might be, you know, when all your mates go to a you know, a party or a pub or whatever, you know, you stay in and you make tunes, and you stay in on a Saturday afternoon and make tunes. Wow. You switch the TV off and you make tunes. That's what it takes. You can't watch EastEnders 3 times a week and become a successful producer. You just can't. You need to focus on your music.
It's weird because the music business is strange because, you know, you see all the stories of like the famous musicians, the Motley Crues, and, you know, all these people, the Janis Joplins, who seem to be partying all the time, because it's not like a business. It's not like maybe martial arts where, of course, you have to have the right diet, you have to put all the discipline. But like music is always this weird kind of thing because it's like art and science and discipline. That I don't know. Do you see a lot of musicians that have that discipline, or do you see some that easily fall into that? I'm famous. I mean, you guys are playing in clubs. People go crazy in clubs and drink in clubs and do drugs in clubs. Yeah.
I think, you know, if you reach a certain height, you know, sort of certain profile, then certain things are taken out of your control. You know, you're just going to live with it, and you end up living really odd hours, and especially traveling, you know, you see a lot of airports and hotels, and your time zones get messed up, especially for the guys who are in international. But yeah, in terms of time spent making music, you know, during the week or whatever, it's, you know, you've got to be pretty dedicated. But there's also people out there that just manage to just roll them out, you know, that can make a tune in a day, you know, and it seems effortless for them. Every once in a while I meet somebody like that, and, you know, that's the holy grail really. If you can just spend 6 hours and you've got a finished track. And I have met people like that. Yeah. But there's other, you know, for everyone else, mostly it's a hard slog getting a track kind of started and progressed and finished, you know.
Does most of your work come from creating your own tracks and putting them out, or is it a lot of remixing work? Or
well, I'm fairly lucky. I do a number of different things. I mean, I teach music production. I used to teach DJing, which is how I met Brian a few years back, and I don't really do that anymore, to be honest.
Is there not the demand?
I don't know. It just there's definitely less demand. I mean, when I moved to London, when I met you, I was doing some DJ tuition, but it's just kind of slowed up, and DJing has become a lot more based around a laptop and less maybe about manipulating the player, like a turntable or a CDJ. And I mean, people still do that, but you can pre-set everything a lot more these days, and that's fine. It just means you can, you know, prepare more, and there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, in terms of tuition, I just don't do it anymore. I don't know why. I don't know, but I've just got more into music production and teaching that, and that's kind of one of my day jobs. But yeah, I do produce. I run a label called Sonar Pilot Audio, and I produce for that. And
what's the label called?
Sonar Pilot Audio.
Sonar Pilot.
Yeah.
Sonar Pilot Audio.
Pilot
okay.
Audio. Yeah.
You were talking about the traveling lifestyle and stuff. I mean, did you have some crazy years of your early career where you were traveling to different places DJing? And
not really. I mean, I've done it in bits. You know, I've travelled, and I'm travelling again. I mean, you know, this year actually I'm doing quite a lot. I'm going to Luxembourg in a couple of weeks' time, and then going back to South Africa, where I go fairly regularly now.
Wait, is that Cape Town?
Johannesburg.
But
hopefully Cape Town as well. I've got friends in Cape Town, but yeah, mainly Johannesburg and Soweto.
Why there? Is there a big demand for it, or you just know people?
Yeah, I went over there a few years ago with my partner, whose family lived there, and because I made tracks and you know, she knew some music people over there. I hooked up with a guy who DJs over there called Kid Funk, who's really cool. He's kind of like the Giles Peterson of Johannesburg. You know, he does all the sort of cool music events, chilled Sunday kind of laid back parties, and mixes up the different genres. So he kind of got me a couple of gigs first time I went over there, and yeah, I've just gone back a few times and done parties with him, and now I'm going back on my own. Actually, before it's been me and my partner have gone over there and seen her family and done some gigs at the same time, but now I'm going back on my own for 2 weeks in the end of May.
Cool.
What's that like? How many gigs will you do in 2 weeks? And
I don't know. I mean, we're definitely going to do Johannesburg and Soweto. It's all kind of in the works now, but Cape Town, maybe Durban as well. It just depends what he can hook up, you know.
Is that something you get psyched up for doing? Is it hard work?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, South Africa, there's a really special scene there. It's a house music nation. House music for them is like pop music.
Okay.
So it's in every car, the stereo is pumped up, house music, soulful house.
Is that true?
Yeah, I mean,
it's wicked.
From my experience, that's true.
Okay.
You know, Johnny, I wanted to ask you something. So, you know, it's a classic story of someone who turns one of their passions into a career, and then they find that they just don't enjoy it as much after a while. Like, I know for me, music is one of the things I love most in the world, and I'm sure it's the same for many people, probably you as well, Brian.
I like it.
Yeah, but I mean, if it was your job, like, do you think you get burnt out on it? And my question to you is, like, have you ever been close to that stage? Or
I've been lucky. I've never done one thing to the point where it's gotten boring. I mean, I know guys who are international DJs who travel every week, and I speak to them, and I've spoken to them in the past, and they've said to me, back to the airport, you know, another airport, another hotel, another gig, and then back to the airport again. And it's like, you know, I sort of sit down with them and I say, man, I know kids that would kill for your job.
You're living the dream, right?
And they're like, yeah. And they're like, well, I tell you what, you do it 3 times a week for 6 years and it becomes work. And I mean, it's great because when you travel, you know, you do get to see places, but you might not get to see enough of the place. Like, I mean, I went to, you know, I've traveled, I did Prague, I went to Rio last year to do not to DJ, but to actually do like a music conference workshop thing. But I was in Rio for like 24 hours. And it's like I managed to squeeze a few hours to have a walk around on my own. But then it was back to the airport. And it's kind of like, you know, I really wanted to sort of stay and
24 hours, and you're back here.
Yeah, literally.
That's crazy.
It was
That's
weird, and
crazy,
like I do that every once in a while. But I know guys that travel all over the world every week, and it's like, yeah, it's work for them. It's still a blessing, you know. They say that it's brilliant to be able to travel and play music and not have to get up at 9 o'clock and go to an office, but it still works. So yeah, I'm lucky. I've never got to the point where I've done enough of the same thing over and over again to burn out. So it's still, when I go away, it's still fresh. It's still, I get excited, and yeah, I'm very lucky.
On another note, I want to know how good Brian was at DJing.
Man, he was really good.
Oh, yeah?
We did like 2 days, right?
It was 2 days. You had the CDJ going on, right?
Yeah.
We didn't have a turntable there.
No.
I think it was just CDJs. You know, those things with the
yeah.
discs and stuff, if people don't know. And yeah, where did you start me? I mean, I don't know what we started.
We started at the beginning
We did.
with counting. If I remember, it was 2 days, and it was a kind of crash course, wasn't it? Where we worked through, and
8 hours a day or something.
yeah, you did like a little recording at the end of the 2 days. That was what you had to show for it, was this mix.
Yeah, and I brought a bunch of my stuff in, a bunch of my hip hop and other music and crazy stuff.
You
Yeah.
did well, man. I think we started by just learning to count bars and sections and understanding how the music was phrased on the tracks.
Man, I just tried to beat mix once, and I could not do it.
Yeah.
It was tricky, and it was
Just,
interesting because I kind of understood how a lot of EDM or music was composed, because it adds a little bit in slowly, and
Layering,
it layers in and layers out, and so it helps a lot on those when you mix out and mix in. But just the whole syncing the RPMs and getting the whole thing down it's like, it's not like rubbing your tummy and chewing gum or whatever. It's like a lot of things going on, and it's all live. And if you screw it up, then you screw it up. So no, but there's
messy.
Have you ever
respect.
messed up a set, like a live set?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Like how badly?
I think the worst one was when I was very young. I was in Spain, playing in the. This is like, I think, my first international gig actually. Well, I was just on holiday, and I took some records with me, and blagged some DJ gigs. And I think I took the needle off the wrong record. There was about probably getting on for 1,000 people in this club on a dry riverbed.
Wow.
And I was like,
How old were you?
I was like 15 or something, 14 or
serious?
15.
Come on.
That's
Maybe,
ridiculous.
yeah, I think it was around 1990, maybe 89 or 90. But yeah, no, it was 91 actually. I remember now. So I was 15, I think, and
They let you play in front of that.
yeah, it was just like the MC got on the mic, say, hey, this kid's from London, he's on holiday, yeah, give him a big
Wow,
round of
that's
applause.
such a
And I
cool
just
story,
played for like half an hour, but I remember it's never left me my memory. I took the needle off. I did like a mix, and thought, okay, the mix is done. I can just find the next record, and I took the needle off the record without thinking. Just everything just went silent. Oof. And I sort of looked up, and everyone had stopped dancing and was kind of looking up at me,
And then
quickly put the needle back
and you
down.
pretended it was something you meant
Yeah,
to
yeah,
do,
I just
right?
like beat.
I just
beat,
rolled with it,
beat,
man.
go.
Just try to,
That's funny.
just carry on. But yeah, I think that's about the worst I've never had any sort of really sort of devastating situations where, because I don't use a laptop when I DJ, and that's the biggest fear I think now for any DJ, because most DJs use laptops, their music is on their laptop, and to have like a hard drive crash or something, you're
dead.
Yeah, like the blank screen comes down the computer, and that's the biggest nightmare, because you're screwed. I just use CDs and records, and so it would take something really catastrophic to stop me from DJing. But
Have you seen guys' computers go down? Have you ever been?
You know what? I watched a YouTube video recently of Skrillex. This guy Skrillex, who's huge at the moment.
Yeah,
he's
I've heard
kind
of
of he's kind of taken dubstep to just the stratosphere. But he I think he was doing a big show, and his computer died basically. So he did right, I'm going to trash it. So he gets it and he smashes it on the floor, and he gets a chair and starts like beating this computer with a chair. And of course, then starts crowd surfing and throwing this dead computer around. And
there's no music?
Yeah, it became part of his act. And I thought that was pretty cool, man, to sort of flip it. And
It's like the equivalent to smashing a guitar and kicking
absolutely.
it up and stuff.
Yeah, yes. Kick the drum kit over. And it's kind of that rock and roll thing, for a DJ is smashing the hell out of their computer if it fails them.
It's probably like a 1,500 quid MacBook Pro or
yeah,
something.
Yeah. Hey, it's cool. He's Skrillex. He can do whatever he wants, and then go crowd surfing. I thought it was cool.
Is dead air the worst thing if you're a DJ?
Yeah, I guess. But again, I can't remember having a really bad instance. I don't think so anyway.
Is the crowd usually pretty forgiving?
Yeah, I have no experience of it, but I'd imagine so.
I guess it depends how many drugs they've taken. Hey.
Yeah. What is? I mean, you know, if you're DJing in any club, I mean, what is the right mix of drugs in clubs? In your opinion? Seriously, I don't know. Is that a crazy question?
That's a cool question.
I don't know. I mean, I'll be honest. I'm not a big drinker, so I never really drink much, especially when I'm working. I just want to keep clear-headed, and you know, when I do DJ, because I don't DJ as much as I used to. I used to do it every week in bars and stuff, and you know, as a job. You know, I don't really do that anymore. I'm kind of, I pick and choose my gigs a lot more now and fix things up that I really want to do instead of just DJing for the sake of it. I've kind of done that. I've been doing it for a long time. So yeah, when I do DJ, I tend to just keep pretty focused and not go too crazy, you know.
What about your audience? Do you care if they're drunk or sober or on drugs or not?
I just don't want them to come up and ask me to play some trance or play something that I'm not going to play, you know.
Okay.
No offense to trance, but I just, you know.
I told them I like trance on the way up.
Yeah, sorry, dude. Sorry, man.
Is trance just not your thing?
No,
is that a completely different culture?
I've got a lot of respect for it.
Okay.
I think, you know, I used to play progressive house in the 90s, like Sasha. And,
Sasha's one of my favorites.
Yeah, but I think the sort of pop trance has kind of put me off a little bit. But yeah, I mean, if I'm DJing somewhere, I'm not going to play that because that's not what I do. I play kind of soulful music and underground music. And so it annoys me when someone comes up and says something like that. But again...
What do you tell them?
I just tell them that that's not
Take
what I do.
Take another pill and fuck off.
Yeah.
So I got a question for you, Johnny.
Actually, wait, just real quick before you do that. Dubstep, because we have people in the States that are listening, and I don't think they know what dubstep is.
Oh, they know what dubstep is, trust me.
They do.
Oh, absolutely.
All of them? Even my grandma?
They do now. They do now. It's huge over there.
Yeah. I
Can you give us a definition?
Be able to identify myself.
Dubstep. What is
just
dubstep?
a definition. That's it.
Okay.
I wouldn't be able to give a definition.
It's like drum and bass, or the new drum and bass.
Kind of. Dubstep is bass music. It's bass-driven music. So it's all about bass, and it's kind of come from what we know as dubstep today. Is really kind of evolved out of a few different things. Like in the UK, we had speed garage and UK garage. Mix in the drum and bass element as well. The sort of clever programming and sonics of drum and bass. Mm-hmm. With a dash of reggae, you know, dub reggae is a heavy influence, of course, hence the dub in dubstep. But the step in dubstep comes from two-step, which was a UK garage thing, sort of like a brand of UK garage music known as two-step.
And when you say it's all about the bass, is that because the bass is making the beat as opposed to like a snare or a drum or a percussion instrument?
It's just a wall of bass, you know, what
does it sound like if you had to do it?
Okay, well,
a cappella.
It's most people call it a wobble. So imagine like a bass sound wobbling. So a big heavy bass that
Notting Hill
modulates.
Carnival kind of
exactly.
Brian, you got to start the show like when you edit it with some dubstep.
Yeah, if you have some else that you suggest, I'll start it off with some dubstep.
Yeah, it's got to have bass in it, and it's
how many beats per minute? How fast?
Pretty much 140.
140. Okay.
So it's kind of, you know, with a snare on the 3. So it's got a kind of half-time feel to it.
It's pretty fast, right? But not ultra fast.
It feels fast, yeah. I mean, it's the actual sort of template for, you know, dubstep in inverted commas used to be a lot smaller. Now, I mean, there's this thing now called post-dubstep, which is kind of bass music, but it doesn't necessarily have to have a dub influence in it. So, and it's just blowing the doors wide open. I mean, there's one person's dubstep is another person's, you know, post-dubstep, and it's just weird now. It's just wide open. There's so many little subgenres and different strains of dubstep or bass music or whatever you want to call it. There's 10 different names. You know,
and people in the States know dubstep because there's Americans doing it now, or they're just listening.
Yeah. There's a few. I mean, obviously, guys like Skrillex have kind of taken the term dubstep and crossed it over into a lot, you know, and introduced it to a lot of people who didn't know it before and might not necessarily know about, you know, the South London roots of dubstep, you know, which is 10 years old, you know, it's an old scene.
Okay.
But yeah, the Americans definitely are into it. There's some really cool artists, you know, coming through the States.
I'm gonna have to listen to some.
I wanted to ask you, so you're out at a club playing your set, and there's 1,000 people dancing to the music that you're spinning, right?
That's a big gig.
okay, 500, whatever.
You were
It's a-
15 when you did that.
Yeah, I tend to do small ones. To be honest, I tend to just do small gigs
Okay.
now.
Is that just you prefer, or just the business that comes up?
It's just the music. Like, I don't really play big commercial music, so I'm never
Okay.
going to play in a big club. But then again, there's places like Fabric, and they're huge. But it tends to be that the sort of bigger names in the scene play at those big clubs.
Okay.
I'm not a huge name. I don't.
Fabric's in London, and it's how big does that get in
Yeah.
there?
Thousands, man.
Okay,
Yeah.
I've never been. Have you been in Fabric, Nick?
Yeah, I watched Sasha there.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, so how much of your set is, do you stick to a plan, or do you go according to the feel and the energy of the crowd?
A bit of both. I mean, I think any DJ, all the DJs that I know anyway, who I've known over the years, tend to do the same thing, which is they have a collection of new tracks, and they know roughly they're going to choose from this pool of a few hundred tracks, whether there be a couple of bags of records or with CDs or on a laptop or whatever. They've got this pool of music, and it tends to be that you're booked to play a certain style. So I play soulful underground music, whether it might be a soulful house, it might be soulful dubstep, which there is, or it might be disco or jazz funk or 80s groove or whatever. So I know I'm going to play that music that I have in my collection. And what I tend to do when I do DJ now is go to the gig. It depends what time you play as well. If you play early, you've really got to do a warm-up thing. And you've got to keep it fairly chilled and not go crazy. But if I'm playing at 2 a.m., 2 till 4 or something, or midnight till 2, I know that's peak time. So most DJs I know will go through their collection and know there are certain tracks that work on the dance floor. And we'll feed off a crowd. If you play a big tune and everyone goes crazy, you kind of know that's a vibe that gets people going. But
Do you have to kind of play a big one and then back it off a little bit and kind of...
yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't really think about it too much. You kind of know. I mean, I've another thing I've always said to my students when I was DJing, teaching DJing, is that the records tend to jump out at you. If you're flicking through your music collection, you come across a track, it tends to jump out. You just know that that's the tune that you've got to play next.
That's cool.
But that's something...
Is that because you're feeling it or the crowd's feeling it?
A bit of, yeah. I mean, they don't know, obviously,
Right.
but it's just the natural flow of your DJ
It's
set.
like
I think.
unconscious competence, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just-
but
that
you
is
can't.
awesome.
I don't think you can teach that.
Yeah.
And I mean, one of the things, I've been DJing for over 20 years. And it took me years and years and years to get that programming thing down of actually knowing kind of what to play next. I think you can learn how to mix pretty quickly. I mean, when I taught
Yeah.
you, it was
I was getting it
yeah.
slowly at the
In
end.
a couple of days, you can pick up the basics, but then it takes years of, experience to go to a club and play the right thing at the right time. And I don't think you can really teach that or read it out of a book, or you just got to do it.
Because you might be thinking, I'm going to play, track 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you find by track 3, no one's feeling your groove,
Yeah.
and no one's feeling that genre.
But
and
you
you're like,
don't really plan it
That much.
sequentially like that.
Okay.
I mean, I know there's sort of, when I play, there might be 2 or 3 tunes that I know go well together. And if I play one, I'm likely to play the other 2.
Okay.
But it's never, you might know maybe what you're going to start with.
I dig to see an experiment where they would take like maybe a set from 12 till 2 when everyone's nice and getting a little bit inebriated or high or whatever, and have a DJ stand at his booth and pretend to be mixing, but just have a set like just running off a computer.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I don't think the crowd would know the difference in many cases. Not always, but in many cases, I think people would still be like, woo, party.
It's a bit of a dance music myth, that.
Really?
Yeah, there's, in fact, I saw on YouTube, there's this guy, David Guetta, who's huge at the moment.
Yeah, we know he is.
He's huge. And there's this YouTube video going around of him playing out somewhere, and some sad person somewhere has kind of put an arrow on the screen saying, look, the CDJ light isn't on, and it's kind of like, this guy's so fake. And it's like, well, actually the CDJ, the lights on the older models were much dimmer. They weren't bright. So you just couldn't see that they're on. And it's one of these things. I mean, I don't really buy this idea that a big name DJ is going to go to a gig and press play on a sequence mix and just punch the air. They just don't really need to. They just, it's
Probably
no
wouldn't
fun.
be. It's no fun. Yeah,
It's no fun.
no
And
fun.
So even if they're using a laptop, they will be making just decisions as far as what tracks?
It's just that the laptop is the new record bag. All your music is on your laptop,
Okay.
but you still play it on the the turntables.
And it auto mixes as well. The laptop will auto mix.
No.
You still have to mix it.
No, I mean you can set up to a degree. You can set up a certain amount of synchronization in terms of tempo with software now, but you still got to decide which tune you're going to play,
right?
And play it. And you still got to be a good DJ to be a good DJ. You can't fake it. I don't think.
They had Deadmau5 on the Rogan show, and he was playing the MTV VMAs the next day or something. And they're like, "Do you have to get there and get ready?" And they asked him that like 5 times, and he's like, "I just have to hit the space bar, really." But that's Deadmau5.
He said that?
He did. He was kind of making a joke about the whole thing. But obviously, he was playing his own tracks. He was probably only going to play a few, and he's like, "Come on, what do I really have to do?" Because then again, it was just Deadmau5.
But that's not DJing.
Right.
That's a distinction that I think a lot of people don't make these days, is that they look at Deadmau5 playing all of his songs and think that he's DJing. He's not. He's got all his tracks sequenced in probably Ableton Live, which is the software I teach now.
Okay.
Sequenced, ready to go. And that is a case of pressing the spacebar, pressing play. And then you tend to have artists who like Deadmau5, will have controllers. They'll have little boxes with pots and faders and buttons. And all they're really doing is adding extra effects or adding sounds on top of a sequenced
Doesn't sound like
show.
that would be very difficult.
It's not, but it's difficult to make the music.
make the
So he's made the music.
Yeah, you've got to come up with the music, and you've got to come up with an interesting live show, and it's really hard.
Speaking of making music, it's something we talked about briefly on the phone a few weeks ago, and I think it's part of the questions we got, and I'm going to ask these questions from Sergio Batista. Appreciate those, by the way. But the first thing that comes to mind is, how do you make money in this business? Because everyone's going to say, I like DJing, I want to get into it, I want to create EDM. You've seen it. You've seen probably artists, you've seen the heyday where you could make money by selling music, and now is it difficult?
Well, the 90s was very different, because especially the 90s, that's when it kind of first blew up.
It's when DJs became rock stars, basically.
Yeah, and just the floodgates were opened and the money got really stupid. And during the noughties, it kind of, a little bit more sense came into it, and as the DJ fees started to drop.
Was it just the DJing fees, or was it the music that they could sell by creating their own music?
Well, that changed with the downloads.
Right, okay.
As soon as we got broadband, especially in the UK, that changed everything. But that's a whole nother kettle of fish. But yeah, in terms of making money from music now, if you want to make money in the music business now, you're in the wrong business, because you can't, unless there's that bit of magic there. As I was talking about earlier, sometimes there's just a bit of magic where somebody gets in, starts making tunes, and their tunes just hit a chord with people, and they become successful very quickly. And if you take guys, in dance music at the moment, who can I use an example? Well, the guys that I would play, people like James Blake, who seem to just appear from nowhere, to become a Mercury Music nominated artist. A couple of years ago, he was at school. You know what I mean? It's like these things happen very quickly for a very tiny percentage, and that's not normal. Everyone else, really struggles, and making music from dance music, you really need to do a lot of different things. You need to become a brand, essentially, and you need to make music, run your own club nights, do your own merchandising, get really clued up with sponsorship as well. So when you're doing events, you've got a budget, things like that. And some people do that really well. There's crews that do lots of events, the kind of labels that do as many events as they put out records or like releases. If you take, in recent years we've had labels like Numbers and Night Slugs. They're sort of, I guess, dubstep labels or post-dubstep or whatever you want to call it. And they do a lot of club nights around the country. And you've got, who else? I saw recently there's like Temper and Rinse FM. Rinse FM is a pirate dubstep station. But they have a label called Temper Records. And you might have heard of Scream and Benga. Magnetic Man, they're sort of quite big dubstep artists who have crossed over into pop.
Okay.
But yeah, they're sort of part of the Temper family, and there's the radio, they do fabric,
So it's branding, basically.
It's branding, yeah. To answer your question, if you want to make music if you want to make money rather out of dance music, you need to become a brand.
As a DJ, you need to become a brand. first. And explain the whole DJ crossover into making your own music, because not all DJs do that, or is it a natural progression that you have
It's
to?
definitely a natural progression. It used to be that a DJ would hire the services of an engineer to go in the studio with them. I mean, guys like Carl Cox, you know, he kind of used releasing music to help build his name as a DJ, and Sasha as well to a degree. But then it sort of crossed over to the point where the DJs started getting technical and became engineers. And now with laptop music, I mean, you know, I can sit on a bus with my iPhone and make a beat on a virtual drum machine, you know, and it's like it's so easy. It's so easy to actually do now. You know, everybody's doing it, and it doesn't, you know, take much to make music, because everybody can. So everybody is.
Are you happy about the technology?
I think it's wicked. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, it's as long as your expectations are level. You know, as long as you keep a level head and you don't think that just because you got Music Maker on your iPhone or whatever it is, it's called, or you've got GarageBand on your iPad, that you're a producer. You're not. You've got to learn, and you've got to make a lot of tunes and learn from your productions and soak up a lot of music. And, you know, it takes a long time to, you know, for most people to get to the stage where they're actually good, you know, good producers.
I want to talk about your tuition in a bit. I just want to knock these questions out from Sergio. He had about 4 questions, and you can answer some of them.
Okay.
But one was, how does one get out there as a DJ successfully? I think you kind of answered that to a certain extent.
Yeah, it's also networking as well. You can't do it from your bedroom. You've got to go out to the clubs and meet people, and all the people that I've worked with over the years. Especially all the tracks that I've had out on records, you know, my earlier releases were the result of me going to a club and going up to the DJ at the end of the night who ran a label, giving him my CD and saying, "Hi, I'm Jonny Miller, I make tunes, I think you might like this stuff." And actually, you know, meeting people and looking into the whites of their eyes and getting to know them, you know, and networking. And that's kind of, I guess you got iChat and stuff like that, and it's, you know, my label, the guy who owns the label that I work for, he lives in Basel and in France. So we video conference, but I still go over and I still see him, and, you know, we still meet up. I think that's really important. If you're a DJ and you want to, or if you're a producer and you want to get yourself out there, you've got to go and meet your peers.
Can't live life on Facebook?
You can't. It helps, but you've got to couple that with actually going out and doing it yourself.
It's good advice, man. It's good advice for anything. I think, whether you're in comedy or any kind of show, probably any kind of business, let alone show business. Let me just, here's a good question. Is it important to be signed by a record label, or can one simply start their own label in order to get the music onto online music stores? That's a good question.
Yeah, well, that's what I've done.
Okay.
That's exactly what I did. I used to have a label called Just Listen Recordings, which was my tunes that I tried to, you know, I sent to other labels, and they were like, "Well, it's cool, but it's not quite right for us. We've got our own thing going on." So I was like, okay, I'm just going to start my own label and set it up with, you know, a digital aggregator, a digital distributor who can put it on iTunes. And you can do that. And I did that quite early on, where there weren't thousands and thousands of people doing it, when it was still quite new. But now it's like, you know, if you go on Juno or Beatport, every week there are thousands of new releases. So it's easy to do. The hard thing now is actually getting people to notice what you're doing. It's like you're just a blade,
drop in the ocean.
a blade of grass on a football pitch.
It must be a bit disconcerting, you know, when you go out there and you see there's thousands of people every week putting out all these tunes. Everyone has GarageBand now with their Macs, and it must. I mean, I don't know if that's the same if you look at. It's not the same with independent film, because with independent film, I think there's just more to making a movie. It takes more people,
it's harder,
more budget. It's harder. But
sure,
how do you get yourself, you know, the wheat and the chaff, you know, with all that music out there?
Well, the result is that the quality has definitely gone down.
Okay.
So it's harder now. You have to search through a lot of rubbish to find. Well, I do anyway. I search through a lot of music every week, and 90% of it is rubbish to me.
Wow.
And the 10% that, you know, the little nuggets, you have to dig harder for them. It takes more time. Whereas before, if I think back to the 90s and the noughties, you go to a record shop, you might have, like, if you're into drum and bass, there might be 5 or 10 hot releases a week. So you'd had less choice. Mm-hmm. Now there's 1,000. So you've got to pick out you know, the ones that, you know, you've got to spend more time looking, or you go for the trusted names. So it's kind of like a lot of artists say to me, how can I get my track signed to Temper? How can I get my track signed to Hyperdub or Numbers or Night Slugs, you know, the cool labels?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you've got to make really good music, you know, and again...
And it's got to get into the hands of the person who makes the decision.
Exactly,
and
yeah,
promote
exactly.
yourself.
But even then, like, you know, I see a lot of label managers on Twitter saying, oh God, another inbox full of rubbish demos. So even then, you're swamped. You know, we get stuff for Sonar Pilot Audio. We get a lot of people hitting us up on SoundCloud saying, hey, listen to my tune, listen to my tune.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I do my best to listen to as much as I possibly can. And we've actually, you know, put tracks out by guys who've never had any tunes out before, whose music I've come across on SoundCloud and liked, and we've kind of signed them up, so to speak. They've got them to do a remix for us or something. But I'd imagine for the big labels, it's really difficult because they're just swamped day to day with thousands of tracks, you know, and it tends to be like a peer thing as well. If a big label, if the label manager gets told by one of their mates or a DJ that they respect about a certain track, they'll pick up on it.
So again, it's out there pressing the flesh and getting meeting people.
So I guess to answer the question, how can I get noticed? Get your music to DJs and to tastemakers who might play something to the label manager of X label or Y label and say, hey, I picked up this really good tune. I met this guy in a club. He gave me this CD and it's dope.
Right.
You know, that's how to do it, not just kind of cold calling. It tends to work by a third party coming in and giving a track to somebody.
I guess that's the way everything works. The last question was, is it important to have an agent or a manager?
Not at all.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Back in the day, the music labels, like in Elvis Presley's times, like Sun Records, when they signed you, they would make an investment and they would distribute. I mean, these days, obviously, the investment isn't as important and the distribution isn't as important, right?
Yeah, I think in terms of what a manager does, they manage you. They take your music and they shop it and they, you know, arrange things for you. You can pretty much do all that yourself now.
Okay.
I think it comes to a point, though, where if you're successful, you have to have a manager. But a manager is not going to magically make you well-known and famous. It's just not going to happen. You know, there's no reason how they can do that. There's no way that they can really do that unless obviously they've got a lot of money, or if you've got a lot of money to buy your way into it. And that's, you know, with money you can buy advertising space. And you get like the you know, the DJ magazine, they do like a poll every year of the top 100 DJs. And it's staggering. You know, you can, if you've got money, you can buy an advert in DJ with a picture of yourself, you know, and saying what you do, and vote for me for the top 100 DJs. And it for some people, that's something they try to do is try to work their way into high profile by way of spending money. But I just don't really think it stands up, you know. It's
tricky.
At the end of the day, you've got to be good. You've got to deliver. And
I see so many parallels with this and what we're doing with the podcast, you know, is there's so much media out there. Trying to get someone's attention from a music perspective or even from a media perspective is hard because there's so much information.
I was thinking about that earlier.
And like you said, it's one way that we've had a bunch of things presented to us is like spend this amount of money and advertise. But then we've also had people telling us, you know, you need to find people that really like your stuff, and your content are going to watch either way, not because you have an advertisement, because they might watch it once and then move on.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Brian and I, we've had our issues over this because, I mean, Brian's got such an amazing work ethic, and he's like, yeah, we're gonna push and get this going. And I just personally, I don't know if I'm wondering like how well the brute force techniques or tactics work.
We fight all the time.
Yeah, so it's like
we're like a bad married couple.
So I can see like in music, I mean, if you took an average guy and gave some PR person a £1 million budget and said, I want this dude to be the next Paul Oakenfold or the next David Guetta or whoever, do you think it could be done regardless of if they had a base level of talent, or do you think?
I don't know.
It's like the $1 million question.
Yeah.
Can you make a star?
I think if it was that easy, then we'd see it. But if you look at kind of who is well known, especially in the world of electronic music, you know, most of the people that are at the top of the tree are pretty good. I mean, if you take guys like Richie Hawtin,
yeah, he's really good actually.
What he does is amazing, and you know, any of the sort of big names and any of the subgenres, when you actually listen to what they're doing, they're there because they're there on merit. They're there because they are the best in their field.
The cream will always rise to the top, right?
Yeah, and I mean, there's that phrase, shit sinks, and it's like, shit sinks, man. And
I haven't heard that one.
The good stuff, shit sinks, and the good stuff will float to the top. I think always. And if what you're doing is really good, naturally, if you've got that certain something, whatever you're doing in life, I think, without getting too deep.
Okay, that's pretty deep. We've only got about 10 minutes left, and we haven't talked about your teaching. Could you just talk about how you got into that? Okay. What it is you actually do when people come in, and is that really important to you?
I love it. I don't do as much of it as I used to. I used to do it, 5 days a week, 6 days a week as a job, and
you do some online teaching as well, right?
Yeah, it's now online. I do private tuition where people just come to my apartment, and I've got decks and computer there, and I do that as well.
What do you teach them?
I use a program called Ableton Live, which is it's called a DAW, a digital audio workstation, which is similar to GarageBand and to Cubase and Logic and all the different.
There's a lot more buttons on it.
No, it's basically the difference between Ableton, the one I use, and a lot of the other ones is that Ableton is aimed at being creative. It's a creative platform. You can take it on stage with you, Ableton. In fact, we were talking about Deadmau5 earlier on. I'm 99% sure he uses Ableton Live. Okay. And all the big artists who take a computer on stage with them and play their own music, they're likely to be using Ableton Live. It's designed to be used by performers on stage and be intuitive and work well while you're doing stuff live,
I'm just wondering what kind of person, besides Brian, who's always trying new stuff and pushing the boundaries, but what kind of person says, hey, I want to take a DJ lesson?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Or learn how to
make music. I don't know. I think partly it's because it's become a lifestyle choice. It's become so easy to do. You don't need to book a studio anymore. If you want to make a tune.
And set up a home studio for £1,000.
You don't need to. £1,000 is nothing. That's 10 times that if you want a decent home studio. Okay. With hardware, with a desk and a synthesizers and stuff. You just don't need to do that anymore. You can open up an iPhone and make a beat. You've actually got sequencers now for the iPhone that you can make a tune on. It's crazy. And so it's become a lifestyle thing where it's become cool and fun to DJ. And I think Pioneer, who do the probably most well-known CD turntables for DJs, their latest product is aimed at a house party environment. So you look at the adverts, and it's like some kid in the kitchen with the decks on the worktop, with their friends all around drinking cocktails. That's cool. It's a lifestyle thing. DJing is not about the clubs anymore. Mm-hmm. It's about being able to DJ wherever you like. And again, if you look at you should definitely check the new Pioneer adverts. It's like a guy just taking the decks out onto the street and plugging in and mixing, on the steps of a building.
Man, someone just came to me. We've got to get this cat to DJ at the London Real party, right?
Right. Is that something you would do?
Absolutely.
Love this networking shit, man.
All right. That sounds like the right kind of music too. Okay. Do you find that, there's an old proverb that says the best way to learn something is to teach it. Do you find that's true? What you do?
Yeah. When I think back to when I first started teaching DJing, I sat with a pen and paper for 6 months and I wrote down everything that I was doing as a DJ and came up with a theory and a formula of what to do and what steps. And then I was with a few friends in Manchester. This was when I was living up north. My friends opened a studio and we just kind of agreed that we were going to do some lessons to help pay the rent in this studio that they had. So I was helping them out and it gave me, some work and stuff. And it just kind of grew from there. They set up a school and I ended up doing my DJ tuition at their school. So I kind of, fell into it really. I never really thought, I was going to become a teacher. I hated school, to be honest. I hated it.
Yeah, me too.
So it's like, the last thing I thought I was going to end up doing was teaching. But more recently, it's been the music production. And I work for a school called Point Blank in London, which is one of the big schools in London. They're really cool. And they've got an online school. So there's I make tutorial videos and I write courses for them. So I've written a couple of courses for Ableton. And we have students from all over the world who submit their work, and I look at their work in Ableton Live and I advise them on maybe how they could use the software better. And
do you ever see something like some real potential with someone?
Absolutely.
Something you're like, wow.
Yeah, last year we, with Sonar Pilot Audio, the label that I managed, we actually took one of my ex-students who I'd spotted on the course, and I just thought, I've got to keep an eye on this guy because he's really good.
Wow.
And we gave him a remix and put him on, you know, headline on one of the releases.
So just out of interest sake, like, how much money would he make out of that remix?
Not a huge amount. I mean, it varies label to label.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what budget they have. Most labels now have very little budget, especially a label like us. We're a small digital label.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't make records. We just basically make digital content.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have a huge budget. I don't know any digital label that does, unless they're doing a lot of other things. But yeah, I mean, financially, it varies person to person. Mm-hmm. There's no sort of set amount, you know. But I've been surprised over the years by two things. One, how much some people I know have been paid to do remixes, and also the other thing, how little big names have been paid to do remixes. And there's no set thing, you know. It's like I say, I've heard extremes at both sides. Mm-hmm. I've heard guys who aren't massive names getting paid quite a lot for remixes, and I've heard of huge names getting next to nothing for remixes. So it depends.
And you know what interests me about Jonny is, like, he's so zen.
Yeah.
You'd expect this, like,
so understated too.
I
I
mean,
think,
It's your mint team.
I think we'd probably go to his place and we'd see these huge pictures of him playing these whole. Oh, I did that when I was 16. I'm like, oh, I don't want to talk about that right now.
Yeah.
You are obsessed with party posters, right?
Flyers.
Flyers.
Oh man, don't get me started. How long do we have?
We got about 5 minutes left.
Check his face light up as well.
You get I know that's your picture on your Facebook.
Yeah,
and stuff.
I collect rave flyers.
What can you describe to what a rave flyer is to people?
This
who
is
might not
it's
know?
my guilty pleasure. It's my train spotting thing. I used to go to a lot of raves when I was a kid, when I was like 15, 16, and at the end of this, in the 90s, you know, you had these big raves and they were all advertised by these flyers, which were like A4, you know, A3, big posters, you know, and really decorative artwork, lots of beautiful illustration, and you know, it was all about having. If you put on a rave, it was like you had to do a really nice flyer to get people interested in your rave. And I just started collecting them and never really stopped. And now I've got tens of thousands of these things all in books, and I buy and sell flyers on eBay. It's my hobby.
You buy and sell them.
I do, yeah.
And I bet your girlfriend really loves this, hey?
Yeah, there's
I think all at your parents' house, you said, right? Or you have a whole catalog there?
Yeah, we spoke on the phone, and
Yeah.
last time I spoke to Brian on the phone, I was going through a bag of flyers that were at my parents' house, bless them. Thank you, Mum and Dad. And I was like, I was talking to Brian on the phone, I was covered in flyers. I had this like lap full of flyers that I was going through that had been in a bag for years that I wanted to sort out. It was a quiet day, so yeah, it's
could be worse addictions, I guess.
And I personally, I love it. It's like it's my hobby. It's my hobby, and
is it like a throwback to those days of like, you know, nothing? It's not digital anymore. It's like a physical representation of something that happened.
Well, these days when you put a club night on, you know, the most important thing is how many likes you get on Facebook, or how many names people say they're coming, or how many maybes you have. You know, it's like, you know, and
sound like old men.
Very
Back
few,
in my day, we had posters.
It's true. I mean, very few events now, bar you know, Fabric. They do a beautiful poster every month, showing who, you know, what's listings are, what's actually happening there. But you don't get many clubs that actually make flyers anymore. And partly because the internet has come so important, it's in our lives so much, but also there's less record shops. You used to go to record shops and pick up flyers. Okay. That was what I did when I was a kid anyway. I didn't have much money to buy records, so I'd buy one record and then just take home 20 flyers with me, you know.
I gotta ask, what's the craziest rave you went to in London?
Well, I used to work at them. When I was very young, I mean, my first gig...
What's with this, like, doing over 21 things when you're really
Yeah,
young? No,
well, my first gig was at the London Astoria.
When you were 11?
When I was 15. Now, you know what?
Dude, your parents did a horrible job raising you. No,
bless my mum and dad. They didn't know half of it, but anyway. Yeah, the thing is that, I mean, I started when I was 15, but that's no big thing these days. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have DJs, you know, and producers who are like 15, 16. That's standard.
Wow.
I mean, I've taught people at Point Blank who are like 12, 13. So when I was 15, you know, there weren't many DJs I was like the only kid in my 5th year at school who had decks, and everyone thought I was weird because I didn't want to be a rapper. You know what I mean? I wanted to play acid house music on decks and go to raves, and so they all thought I was mad. But yeah, it was like, you know, my first gig was, I was 15, it was this Astoria. I'd managed to get some part-time work at this rave called Fantasy, which used to be a pirate radio station, which kind of got me into electronic music. And
is that Camden, the Astoria?
it was in Charing Cross Road,
Okay.
Tottenham Court Road rather.
Okay.
They've just they tore it down like last year actually. Sadly,
Bastards.
I know, I was gutted, man. But yeah, that was like New Year's Eve, just before my 16th birthday. I wasn't even old enough to be in the club, and I was playing. So that was, I got into it quite early. And yeah, I used to, crazy sort of big open air raves. I mean, me and my friends, we used to go and do flyers. We used to work for flyer companies as well. So we'd get free tickets to the raves. And I remember one of them called Perception, which was like a big open air, 10,000 people.
Wow.
It's where the Prodigy first started playing. They used to do these big raves before they picked up guitars.
Where did they do something like that?
It was just mostly in like the Midlands. There was in the 80s, late 80s, there was a lot of raves, illegal raves. But I was just too young for that. I was too young for acid house in sort of 88, 89. I got into it in 1990. And by then there was like big events in the Midlands, Cambridge and Oxfordshire. And so you used to drive out into the middle of Oxford, into find a field. And there'd be a big rave with 10,000 people.
It's
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, that's
And
cool.
so, yeah.
Do you have
I went
pictures
to
from back then?
S&M. Actually, no. That's one thing I'm really gutted about, actually. I never had a camera when I was a kid. I never, a few of my friends have a few pictures, but yeah, it's. I don't have any pictures, but I've got flyers.
It's like, but that's the case. When you're always having the most fun, you forget to take pictures.
Yeah, sure.
That's always like the good sign.
Yeah, it's one of the. I noticed that I never take a camera when I go on holiday or anything like that because it's the quickest thing to take you out of the moment. It's like you're thinking, what should I be taking a picture of this instead of just having fun and enjoying yourself?
Yeah, no, you're thankful later, especially 20 years later.
Yeah, I guess.
Boys, this is pretty much rounded it up. I just want to get any contacts that people want to get in touch with you. I know your Twitter is at Jonny Miller, JONNYMILLER.
That's right.
And your label, and how do they find you? If you want them to find you. Some of our guests don't want to be found.
No, it's cool. We're on SP-audio.com.
SP, so Sierra Papa audio.com.
SP.
Okay.
Yeah. SP-audio. That's Sonar Pilot Audio. That's the label. And the school that I work at is called Point Blank Online. That's pointblankonline.net. Okay. And all my music and mixes, DJ mixes and stuff, that's at soundcloud.com/Jonny Miller.
Okay, cool. And they can find you on Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah, I think I'm JonnyMiller.music. I can't remember, man. How embarrassing.
So much info.
Yeah, but actually all my contacts are on my SoundCloud page. So that's just soundcloud.com/Jonny Miller.
And if they want private tuition, they can hook you up and meet you up in London and stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely. I've got a few people that I see regularly, teach regularly. But yeah, always looking for new people.
That's cool. I had a really good time with Johnny over 2 days. I mean, it was like 8 hours each day. It was pretty hard.
It was cool, wasn't it?
Yeah, your life's tough, Brian.
You did well.
But it was a lot of fun, and you were very patient with me. And no, we had a good time. It was
great.
It was good. So I recommend it. It is kind of a fun thing to kind of do. It's a little different.
Absolutely.
Be able to DJ your own house party or something. That'd be cool. I would not have the confidence to do that, but maybe if I spend a little more time with it. So, anyways, dude, thanks for coming on. That was really informative, man. We got a nice little slice into I think what it's like, what you do.
Thanks for having me.
Well, next time I'm going to ask you about DJ groupies.
Yeah, another myth. Another myth.
Dude, this guy plays it so close to the best.
So until next time, it's about the journey.
Cool, guys. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
All right.